Good morning. It is very good to see everyone out here this morning. First of all, I'd like to wish all the fathers here, I wish you all a happy Father's Day. You know, one thing that would make our world a better place is if more men would stand up and be the fathers that they should be. We look around this world today and we see, unfortunately, we see broken homes. We see homes where mothers are alone and need to be the father in the sense. We see fathers that may be there but aren't bringing their children up the way they should. You know, so if we would all just pick up our Bibles and go back to God, God gives us the model. God created husbands and wives, mothers and fathers. And you know, one of the amazing things to me is, you know, I really do think that God brings certain people together to complement one another. You know, as far as a mother and a father together. We need more men today that would be as Joshua was in Joshua 24 verses 24 verses 14 through 18. I'll read that in just one moment here. I have one thing to adjust. There we go. Okay. Joshua 24 verses 14 through 18. Now therefore, fear the Lord, serve him in sincerity and in truth, and put away the gods which your fathers served on the other side of the river, and in Egypt. Serve the Lord. And if it seems evil to you, serve the Lord. Choose yourself this day whom you will serve, whether the gods which your fathers served that were on the other side of the river, or the gods of the Amorites, in whose land you dwell. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Not changing here? Thank you. That helped out with the silence. It's not changing. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and keep reading, and as they will work through that. So the people answered and said, "Far be it for us that we should forsake the Lord to serve other gods. For the Lord our God is He who brought us and our fathers up out of the land of Egypt, from the house of bondage, who did these great signs in our sight and preserved us in all the way that we went among all the people through whom we passed. And the Lord drove out from before us all the people, including the Amorites who dwelled in the land. We also will serve the Lord." You know, one of the things that we see there, and, you know, just a little bit of a backdrop, Joshua was the man that was chosen by God to lead the people of Israel after Moses had died. Right before they went into the land of Canaan, the land of promise. So here you have Joshua, who really is showing the example from two parts. Number one, as a leader of the people, and the second being the leader of his household. You know, can you imagine how much better the country we live in today if our politicians would put first God, their family, and their country? Can you imagine how much better things would be? Can you imagine how much better the family would be if we had fathers standing up to be men like Joshua? Men that looked around and said, "You know what, world, I don't care what you do. As for me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord." It's the attitude that I wish more men had in this country, in this world. You know, there's definitely examples in... There we go, okay. You know, we don't need fathers today who will pitch their tents towards Sodom As we see in Genesis 13, 10 through 13, when time came for separation of Abraham and Lot, Lot clearly made a choice indicating his materialism. Now, who wouldn't, as a father, look around and maybe say, that there's definitely some positives over here. Imagine you're a shepherd and you herd sheep. You need lots of land to feed them so that you have the money and the supplies to feed your family. But when you look over there where Lot was looking, we need to realize that Abraham and Lot had been here for some time. Lot, when he looked over that way, wasn't paying attention to the fact that there were immoral people that were living there. Wasn't paying attention to where it was exactly that he was going to place his tent. And as fathers, we need to be very careful about these types of things, where we take our families, where we raise our kids. And in this world today, it's tough. Let's face it. I mean, I have had conversations with our kids that just because of the schools that they go to, some of the things they come home with, that you have to hopefully prepare them before they even get there. The schools don't want our kids to believe that there is a God. Now, that's not to say that there isn't some teachers out there that are Christians. Because I've also, in my life, talked to my children about different teachers that they said. Matter of fact, Courtney was telling me the one day, she said her science teacher, this was, I think, back 9th or 10th grade, started to teach evolution and basically said, I'm told to teach this by the state, but I don't believe it. So we're just going to go through it real quick. So there still are teachers out there that have beliefs in God and things such as that. But unfortunately, the control that they have is not necessarily there. And that is another really wonderful reason why, as fathers, we need to step up. We need to be there for our children to build them up. Take a look at 2 Peter chapter 2, verses 7 through 8. 2 Peter chapter 2, verses 7 through 8. It says, and delivered righteous Lot, who was oppressed by the filthy conduct of the wicked. For the righteous man dwelling among them tormented his righteous soul from day to day by seeing and hearing their lawless deeds. Think about that. Peter uses the terminology, he says, righteous Lot was tormented day by day. Well, imagine his family was going through the same thing. Genesis 19 seems to indicate that some of Lot's children chose to remain behind and not leave with Lot. So the choice that he made to pitch his tents towards Sodom ended up breaking up his family. Often, too many times, fathers have made many of life's decisions with materialism as a dominant factor. We need fathers today that will emulate individuals such as Enoch. Enoch, we see in Genesis 5, 21 through 24, it says, Enoch lived 65 years and begot Methuselah. After he begot Methuselah, Enoch walked with God 300 years and had sons and daughters. So all the days of Enoch were 365 years, and Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. Now think about that. Enoch walked with God. If we have fathers that are walking with God, we're going to have better families. We're going to raise our children right. It's going to give our children a better step or a higher step up when they're going out into this world, that we need to remind ourselves daily that I'm not a part of this world. I'm just a passing through. In Hebrews 11, verse 5, it says, "By faith Enoch was taken away, so that he did not see death, and was not found, because God had taken him. For before he was taken, he had this testimony, that he pleased God." Now you continue on to learn some more in Jude 14, Jude 14 through 15. There's only one chapter in that book. "Now Enoch, the seventh from Adam, prophesied about these men also, saying, Behold, the Lord comes with 10,000 of his saints to execute judgment on all, to convict all who are ungodly among them of all their ungodly deeds which they have committed in the ungodly way, and of all the harsh things which ungodly sinners have spoken against him." You know, these verses, they picture Enoch as a father who walked with God, a man of great faith, a man who was not afraid to speak out against ungodly speech and conduct. Our fathers today leaving that type of an example for their children. You know, it's not that God is looking down on us and saying, "I need you to be a perfect father and never mess up." Just a show of hands, is there any fathers in here that can say that they never messed up? I'm just showing the hand just to show that that's what I was looking for. I'm definitely not raising my hand and saying that there weren't times that I've fallen short. But you know what? What matters is the ultimate goal, what we're trying to do. When we fall short, when we make a mistake, God wants us to do just as He wants us to do as Christians. Get up, repent, and change. You know, we also need fathers, and go down that line of Enoch just a little bit further. Hebrews 11 verse 6 tells us about someone else who was a descendant of Enoch, and that was Noah. Can you imagine being a father, having your 3 sons and their wives and your wife, and God looking down on the earth and saying, "You're the only one left"? Hebrews 11 and verse 6, it says, "God, without faith it is impossible to please Him. For he who comes to God must believe that He is, and that He is a rewarder of those who diligently seek Him." 2 Peter chapter 2 and verse 5, And it did not spare the ancient world, but saved Noah, one of 8 people, a preacher of righteousness, bringing in the flood on the world of the ungodly. And you know what Noah did after the flood? He grew a vineyard, and he made some wine, and he got so drunk that he did something wrong. He sinned. So it wasn't that God was saying, "Noah, you are so perfect, you deserve to get on this boat." It was, no, he was serving God and doing what he could, even with his weaknesses. And you know what? I think sometimes as fathers, we need to show that we have weaknesses. Now, I'm not saying wallow around and cry and things such as that. Maybe that's the emotional person you are. There's nothing wrong with crying, even as a father. But you know what? We sometimes need to let our guards down a little bit. Let emotions out even. You know, I'll tell you what, there's one thing, well, there's many things that will make you smile, but on this day as a father, I have now heard, I think, 4 or 5 times just from Liam, "Happy Father's Day." And right before I came up here, he whispers in my ear and he goes, "Daddy, can I go tell Papa Happy Father's Day? Because he's Mommy's father." And I said, "After the prayer, absolutely." And then I saw Papa give him a big hug, so I'm assuming that happened. But you know what? When we look down at our children, they just make us smile. And as fathers, we don't want to fall short. We don't want to make mistakes. We want to raise our children, and we want to be as perfect as possible because we want them to grow up. And you know what we want them to do? At least I hope you're on the same page with me. We want them to seek God. We want them to look for God in heaven, for guidance in their lives. We want to be individuals such as Noah, where even if our family was the only one left and God was looking down upon us. Now, obviously, we know there's not going to be a boat in anyone's future. We know the next time the earth is destroyed, it will be by fire. It will be during the second coming of Jesus Christ. But you know what? It does kind of show me something that I'll tell you I have struggled with in my life with patience at times. Nobody else has that problem, right? I understand. But when you look at the example of God our Father, and you think about the fact that it had been thousands of years since the initial creation, what was the population of the world? I don't know. I know there's been some estimates and some thoughts, but you think about it, even just looking at some of the genealogies. There wasn't 10 people on the earth. There wasn't 20 people on the earth. The earth was populated. You know what? God waited for 8 people. To me, that shows God's patience and God's love for His people. That God doesn't want to take us when there's still a chance that someone will serve Him. Now, I'm not prophesying up here. I don't know when God's going to come, but I'm just looking at examples from the Bible. And He waited for 8 people. That's patience. And you know what? Sometimes when you're around a 4-year-old a lot, your patience get drawn thin just because he talks too much. Now, maybe your 4-year-olds don't talk as much as mine does. But you know, funny story, it's the kids, even the older kids will say, yeah, we've learned to drown him out. We just let him talk. And it was funny, the other day, one of our cats got out of the house. And we didn't know it. We were all out in the yard, and I guess Liam was looking in the trees, and he said, I think I saw a cat. And nobody responded because they weren't listening to him. And then finally it clicked in Christy's head. She said, a cat, what? But you know what? It's just a joy to have children. It really is. And I hope as fathers, we take advantage of that fact. You know, people tell me all the time, enjoy them while they're this age because it goes by so fast. I feel like it was 5 years ago on a Sunday when Liam first showed up. He's going to be 5 years old next week. Time does fly. And you know what? We don't want to be, as fathers, we don't want to look back on the past and say, I should have. Because if you're here now, act. Serve God. Show your children what is important. Our world would be so much better. Still wouldn't be as good as heaven, but it would be so much better if we had more fathers standing up on a daily basis and taking the responsibilities that we need to take. So as I bring this lesson here to a close, yes, okay. Today is Father's Day, a day that we remember and give respect unto our fathers, a day that we say, thank you. But let us also use this day to evaluate our fatherhood. As fathers, what can we do? What can we do to raise our children? What can we do if our children are already raised? Are we being the kind of fathers that will be a spiritual benefit to our children? Are we being the kind of fathers that are pleasing unto God? I just hope and I pray that fathers will work harder in their obligations, because being a father is a great responsibility. And we see that example in our godly Father in heaven, who loved us so much that he was willing to sacrifice his Son. Can you imagine that? But today, as we bring this lesson here to a close, we offer the invitation to you. Just as God created fathers, just as God has created mothers, God has given us the opportunity as individuals to be Christians, to serve God, to be a part of His family. If you're here this morning and you have come to that realization that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, and you want to be baptized for the remission of your sins, confessing Jesus, we give you that opportunity. Or maybe you're already a Christian. Maybe you've struggled. Maybe there's been something in your life that's caused you to stumble. Or maybe there's something going on that you just need prayers for, encouragement. We ask that if you're here this morning that you please come as we stand and sing this song.